"Brother, help me." Those were the only words Olivia managed to whisper before covering her mouth to stop herself from crying out loud. She was hiding on the bathroom floor with one hand wrapped around her stomach and the other gripping a broken phone that still had blood smeared across the screen. Outside the door, her husband was tearing the bedroom apart while screaming her name so violently that the walls shook with every word. Olivia could hear drawers crashing onto the floor and glass breaking somewhere near the staircase. Then came silence. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat harder because you know the person looking for you has suddenly stopped making noise. She stared at the locked bathroom door while trying to breathe quietly, but her body kept trembling. Another hard bang hit the wall outside. "You think you can hide from me?" her husband shouted. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut as tears rolled down her swollen face. 7 years earlier, she thought marrying a powerful man would finally give her peace. Instead, it slowly destroyed her life piece by piece until she no longer recognized herself. The line on the phone stayed quiet for 3 seconds after she whispered for help. Olivia almost thought nobody was there until she heard a man breathing slowly on the other side. That breathing alone was enough to make her start crying harder. Because no matter how many years had passed, she still recognized her brother immediately. People all over the world feared that voice. Governments denied his existence publicly, while secretly paying millions to avoid crossing him. Criminal organizations spoke his name carefully. Even men surrounded by bodyguards checked behind them whenever rumors spread that he was nearby. Yet to Olivia, he was simply the older brother who used to carry her home whenever she fell asleep on the couch as a child. "Who touched you?" he finally asked, in a cold, calm tone. Before she could answer, the bathroom door handle suddenly twisted hard. Olivia nearly screamed. Her husband's voice lowered into something far more terrifying than anger. "Who are you talking to?" he whispered through the door. Olivia covered her mouth with both hands. Then the line disconnected. Thousands of miles away, inside a crowded underground casino hidden beneath a luxury hotel, a tattooed man slowly stood from his chair after hearing his sister cry for the first time in nearly a decade. Every conversation in the room immediately stopped. Dealers froze. Armed guards stepped backward. Nobody moved whenever Vincent Morello went silent. He was the kind of man who never needed to shout, because people feared him most when he looked calm. Vincent stared at the phone in his hand for several seconds, while his men waited nervously nearby. One of them quietly explained that representatives from 2 rival crime families had arrived downstairs for an emergency negotiation. Vincent ignored him completely. His jaw tightened slightly as he slipped the phone into his pocket and reached for his coat. The movement alone changed the atmosphere in the room, because every man standing there understood one thing immediately. Someone had just made a mistake they would never survive. Engage in our comment section and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you're in Georgia, Moscow, Ohio, California, New York, Mexico City, Tokyo, drop your location below. And if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss any of our videos. What happened that night would later become one of the most talked about criminal incidents connected to organized crime circles across America and Europe. Police reports were buried, witnesses disappeared, News stations suddenly stopped covering parts of the story after receiving pressure from powerful people. But the truth began inside that bathroom with a terrified pregnant woman who finally decided she would rather risk starting a war than spend one more night being abused by the man she married. Olivia had hidden her connection to Vincent Morello from everyone for 7 long years. Her husband believed she came from a wealthy but ordinary family. The politicians attending their parties believed she was simply a quiet wife who stayed away from cameras. Even the private security guarding their mansion had no idea the woman they greeted every morning shared blood with one of the most feared Mafia figures alive. Olivia met her husband, Nathan Calloway, during a charity event in Chicago 6 years earlier. Nathan was rich, charming, educated, and respected by nearly everybody around him. He came from old money and had the kind of political connections that opened doors instantly. Women admired him. Men trusted him. Television networks loved interviewing him because he knew exactly how to speak like a man people wanted to believe in. When Nathan first met Olivia, he treated her with a level of kindness she had never experienced before. At least that was what she believed at the time. He sent flowers to her office every week, flew her to private resorts, introduced her to governors, business executives, celebrities, and athletes. He made her feel safe after years of trying to distance herself from the dangerous world her brother controlled. When Vincent warned her that powerful men often hide their worst sides behind polished smiles, Olivia accused him of being jealous and controlling. That argument became the last real conversation the brother and sister had before she disappeared from his life completely. At first, Nathan never hit her. That part came later. The early warning signs were smaller and easier to excuse. He became irritated whenever she answered unknown phone calls. He disliked her speaking to certain friends. He slowly convinced her to stop working because he claimed wealthy wives should not stress themselves with jobs. Then he began controlling what she wore during public events, which people she sat beside, which restaurants she visited alone. Nathan never acted cruel in front of others. That was what made everything harder. Every bruise appeared where cameras could not see it. Every insult came after the doors closed. Every apology sounded believable enough to make Olivia question herself. By the 3rd year of their marriage, she had become isolated from almost everyone except her husband. And by the 5th year, Nathan no longer bothered pretending to control his temper. The first time he slapped her, he cried afterward and blamed pressure from politics. The second time, he blamed alcohol. The third time, he blamed her. 2 months before the phone call to Vincent, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. For a brief moment, she believed the baby would change everything. Nathan smiled when she first told him. He even carried her around the kitchen while laughing excitedly. But less than a week later, his behavior became worse than ever before. He started checking her phone constantly. He installed extra security cameras around the mansion. He demanded to know everywhere she went throughout the day. One night, Olivia woke up around 2 in the morning and realized Nathan was sitting beside the bed, watching her sleep in complete darkness. When she asked what he was doing, he smiled strangely and said he was protecting his family. From that moment onward, fear slowly replaced whatever love she still had left for him. She started hiding emergency cash inside bookshelves, secretly keeping copies of important documents, writing down details of certain conversations she overheard Nathan having with dangerous people over the phone. Then one evening, she accidentally discovered something that made her blood run cold. Nathan was not only cheating on her, he was involved with people connected to criminal networks Vincent had been fighting for years. Olivia overheard a private conversation between Nathan and another man discussing money transfers, weapons shipments, and a plan involving several politicians. Then she heard Vincent's name mentioned directly. Nathan laughed during the conversation and called Vincent a ghost hiding behind old legends. He had no idea the woman standing silently outside the office door was Vincent Morello's sister. That same night, Olivia searched through Nathan's private study while he attended a political fundraiser downtown. Inside a locked drawer, she found photographs, financial records, and surveillance reports connected to her own family. Some of the documents were years old, which meant Nathan knew who she truly was long before they got married. Olivia sat frozen on the floor for nearly an hour after realizing the man she loved may have targeted her from the very beginning. The night everything exploded started with a dinner party attended by judges, investors, and political donors. Olivia forced herself to smile through the evening, while Nathan played the role of the perfect husband beside her. Guests congratulated them on the pregnancy, while cameras flashed around the ballroom. Nobody noticed how tightly Nathan gripped Olivia's arm whenever she spoke too long to another guest. Nobody noticed the fear hidden behind her smile whenever he leaned close to whisper something in her ear. The moment the final guests left the mansion after midnight, Nathan's entire personality changed. He accused Olivia of going through his private office. He grabbed her phone and smashed it against the wall. Then he demanded to know whether she had contacted Vincent. Olivia denied everything, but Nathan kept getting more aggressive until he finally shoved her hard against the kitchen counter. When she tried protecting herself, he slapped her so violently she collapsed onto the floor. And that was the moment she realized if she stayed silent any longer, she and her unborn child might not survive the night. Olivia stayed curled against the cold bathroom wall long after the phone call ended, because she knew the moment she stepped outside, everything in her life would change forever. Nathan stopped speaking through the door, and somehow that frightened her more than his screaming. She could no longer hear furniture moving or footsteps in the hallway. The mansion had gone completely silent. Olivia carefully pulled herself up using the sink for support, while trying to ignore the sharp pain in her side. Her breathing shook as she stared at her reflection again. Blood stained the collar of her white sweater, and dark makeup tears ran down her cheeks. For a second, she barely recognized the woman staring back at her. She remembered being 24 years old, laughing freely on a yacht in Miami, years before she met Nathan, believing she had escaped the darkness attached to the Morello name forever. Back then she thought cutting ties with her brother meant freedom. She had no idea freedom could become another kind of prison when the wrong person controls your life slowly enough that you stop noticing the chains tightening around you. A sudden crash against the bathroom door nearly made her scream. "Open the damn door," Nathan shouted, his voice rough and dangerous again. Olivia instinctively stepped backward and wrapped both arms around her stomach. Nathan slammed the door harder. "Who were you talking to?" he yelled. Olivia stayed silent. Another violent bang shook the entire frame. "Answer me!" he roared. Then came another terrifying pause. His tone suddenly softened again, becoming calm in that fake, gentle way she had learned to fear most. "Baby, open the door," he said quietly. "You know I would never hurt you unless you push me too far." Olivia felt tears burning her eyes again, because she remembered the first time he ever said those exact words. It was after their second anniversary, when he grabbed her throat during an argument, and then cried afterward, while promising it would never happen again. Every apology after that sounded almost identical. Nathan always found a way to make his violence feel like her fault, and for years, part of her believed him. She slowly reached into her pocket and realized the old silver phone was still there. Nathan had not heard her call clearly enough to know who answered. At least not yet. Olivia looked around desperately for another way out, but the bathroom windows were too small. The only exit was the door Nathan continued pounding with growing rage. Suddenly she heard another sound downstairs. A loud thud, then distant shouting. Nathan stopped hitting the door immediately. Silence spread through the hallway again. Olivia frowned in confusion while listening carefully. More voices echoed faintly from the lower level of the mansion. Then came a sharp scream, followed by what sounded like gunfire. Nathan cursed under his breath outside the bathroom before rushing away from the door. Olivia's heart nearly stopped. She slowly unlocked the bathroom and cracked the door open just enough to look into the hallway. The upstairs lights flickered once. Then the entire mansion went dark. At that exact moment, nearly 12 armed men wearing black tactical gear were already moving through the Calloway estate with terrifying precision. The security guards stationed outside never even had time to react properly. 2 had been disarmed before reaching their weapons. Another was dragged unconscious behind a fountain after trying to sound an alarm. The men entering the property carried no official markings, spoke very little, and moved with military discipline. One by one, cameras across the mansion went offline. Every entrance became sealed within less than 4 minutes. Nathan stumbled halfway down the staircase, holding a handgun, while shouting orders at his remaining security team. But nobody answered him anymore. One bodyguard lay unconscious beside the dining room entrance, while another bled heavily near the fireplace after attempting to fight back. Nathan's confident political smile had vanished completely. Panic had finally reached him. Because deep down, he understood there was only one type of man capable of reaching him inside his own heavily protected mansion without warning. Olivia stepped cautiously into the hallway upstairs, while distant noises echoed below. Her bare feet trembled against the cold marble floor. She wanted to run, but fear rooted her in place. Then she heard it. Slow footsteps climbing the staircase calmly. Not rushed, not chaotic, controlled, deliberate. Olivia's chest tightened instantly because she recognized that walk before she even saw him. Nathan suddenly appeared at the bottom of the staircase, pointing his gun wildly toward the darkness below. Sweat covered his face now. "Stay back," he shouted at someone Olivia still could not see. "Do you know who I am?" No answer came. Just those same steady footsteps, continuing upward one step at a time. Nathan's breathing became uneven. "I said stay back," he screamed again, before firing 2 shots downward. The gunfire exploded through the mansion. Olivia flinched hard. Then silence returned once more. A long, terrifying silence. Finally, a man's calm voice rose from the darkness below. "You hit the wall," the voice said quietly. "Twice." Nathan froze instantly. Olivia did too. She had not heard that voice in 7 years, but it still carried the exact same cold calmness that once made grown men avoid eye contact around him. Slowly, Vincent Morello stepped into view beneath the dim emergency lights glowing across the staircase. He wore a black coat over a dark suit, with leather gloves still stained with fresh blood. Tattoos disappeared beneath his collar and climbed along one side of his neck. His expression showed absolutely no emotion as he looked directly at Nathan. Yet somehow that emotionless stare felt far more frightening than anger. Nathan tightened his grip on the gun while trying to hide the fear spreading across his face. "You're insane," Nathan whispered. Vincent continued walking upward slowly. "You hit my sister," he replied calmly. Nathan immediately pointed the gun toward Olivia instead, grabbing her arm roughly when she backed away. "Take another step and I'll kill her myself," Nathan snapped desperately. Olivia gasped as he yanked her close against him. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, Vincent finally stopped moving. His eyes shifted briefly toward Olivia's bruised face, then lowered toward the hand she instinctively kept protecting over her stomach. The entire staircase fell silent again. Nathan pressed the gun harder against Olivia while breathing heavily. "You think you scare me because people whisper your name?" Nathan barked. "You're nothing but another criminal hiding behind money and violence." Vincent stared at him for several seconds without blinking. Then he said something that made Nathan's face slowly lose color. "3 years ago," Vincent said quietly, "you ordered a man named Eric Nolan killed outside a harbor in Baltimore because he threatened to expose your business with the Volkov Syndicate. 2 years ago, you bribed Senator Hale Mercer with $4 million hidden through offshore accounts in Cyprus. And 6 months ago, you started planning my sister's death after learning she was pregnant." Nathan's eyes widened completely. Olivia felt her entire body go cold. Nathan suddenly realized the terrifying truth. Vincent did not arrive only to rescue his sister. He arrived already knowing everything. Every lie, every hidden deal, every betrayal. Nathan's hand began trembling slightly against the gun. "You don't know what you're talking about," he muttered weakly. Vincent finally took another step upward. "You married her because you thought hurting my family would weaken me," he said calmly. "But you made one mistake." Nathan swallowed hard. "What mistake?" Vincent's expression never changed. "You let her survive long enough to call me." Before Nathan could react, the lights across the mansion suddenly shut off completely again. Total darkness swallowed the staircase. Olivia heard shouting, a struggle, a gunshot exploding inches away. Then another scream filled the hallway as somebody crashed violently against the railing. Olivia dropped to the floor instinctively, while chaos erupted around her. And somewhere within that darkness, Vincent Morello finally stopped speaking like a patient brother and started moving like the man the entire underworld feared. Olivia could not see anything after the lights went out, but she heard everything. A violent struggle exploded across the staircase, while Nathan shouted curses somewhere in the darkness. Another gunshot rang through the mansion, so loudly it made her ears ring. Then came the sound of someone crashing into the wall hard enough to crack wood. Olivia dropped lower against the floor and covered her stomach with both arms while trying not to panic. Her heart pounded so violently she could barely hear herself think. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered back on for half a second, and in that brief flash, she saw Nathan stumbling backward near the railing, while Vincent moved toward him with terrifying speed. Then darkness swallowed the staircase again. Another scream echoed through the mansion. This one sounded different. Desperate. Frightened. Olivia realized with shock that the scream came from Nathan. The same man who spent years making her afraid was finally terrified himself. When the emergency lights stabilized again, Nathan was lying against the staircase railing, with blood running down one side of his forehead. His gun had fallen somewhere across the hallway floor. Vincent stood several feet away, staring at him calmly, while two armed men emerged from the lower level of the mansion behind him. Olivia slowly pushed herself upward, while trembling badly. Nathan looked completely different now. The polished politician image was gone. There was no confidence left in his face. Only fear. Real fear. He looked at Vincent like a man realizing too late that every warning he ignored about the Morello family had been true. "Listen to me," Nathan said quickly, while raising both hands slightly. "We can make a deal." Vincent did not answer. Nathan swallowed hard and looked toward Olivia. "Tell him to stop this," he pleaded. "Olivia, tell your brother this has gone too far." Olivia stared at him silently for several seconds. Then she finally said the words she should have spoken years earlier. "You should have stopped the first time you hit me." Nathan's face changed instantly after hearing that. The mask finally disappeared completely. "You ungrateful little liar," he snapped at her. "Everything I built was for you." Vincent stepped closer. "Careful," he said softly. Nathan backed away another step. "You think she told you the whole story?" Nathan shouted suddenly toward Vincent. "Ask your precious sister where she was the night your father died." Olivia's face immediately lost color. Vincent's expression remained unreadable, but his eyes shifted slowly toward her. Nathan noticed the reaction and laughed bitterly despite the blood on his face. "That's right," he continued. "She never told you." Olivia shook her head quickly. "Nathan, stop." But Nathan ignored her completely now. "You spent years believing your father died because of rival families," he continued, while staring directly at Vincent. "But Olivia knows the truth." Vincent remained silent. Nathan smiled weakly through swollen lips. "Your father was betrayed from inside the family." Olivia suddenly stepped forward despite her fear. "Don't listen to him," she said desperately. Vincent kept his eyes on her for several seconds before speaking quietly. "What is he talking about?" Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came out immediately. Nathan laughed again after seeing her hesitation. "See," he said. "She's still hiding things from you." One of Vincent's men suddenly moved toward Nathan aggressively, but Vincent lifted one hand slightly, stopping him instantly. The mansion fell silent again, except for Olivia's uneven breathing. Finally, she spoke in a trembling voice. "I was 14 the night our father died," she whispered. "I heard him arguing with someone downstairs." Vincent's expression hardened slightly. Olivia looked down toward the floor. I saw Uncle Marco leave the house that night carrying a gun. Nathan smirked immediately. And who helped Uncle Marco escape afterward? He asked coldly. Olivia shut her eyes tightly. Our mother, she answered softly. For the first time since entering the mansion, Vincent's calm expression cracked slightly. Nathan saw it immediately and smiled wider despite his injuries. That's the truth your family buried, Nathan continued. Your father wasn't killed by enemies outside the organization. Your own blood turned on him. Olivia looked close to breaking down completely. I never told you because Mum begged me not to, she whispered toward Vincent. She said if the truth came out, the family would destroy itself. Vincent stared at her silently, while memories from years ago flashed through his mind. The funeral, the promises of revenge, the wars he fought believing rival families murdered his father. Entire cities burned because of that belief. Nathan slowly pushed himself upright using the railing. You built your empire chasing the wrong people, he said quietly. And while you wasted years spilling blood, the real traitors sat at your family table. One of Vincent's men moved again, furious now, but Vincent remained motionless. Olivia watched her brother carefully and realized something frightening. Vincent looked calmer than before. Much calmer, and that usually meant he was becoming more dangerous. Nathan sensed it too, because he suddenly stepped backward again. Look, Nathan said quickly. You came here for your sister. Take her and leave. Vincent slowly turned his eyes back toward him. You threatened my pregnant sister with a gun, he replied softly. Nathan's breathing quickened again. Because I panicked, he argued. You stormed my house with armed men. Vincent took one slow step closer. You spent years hurting her. Nathan shook his head desperately. I loved her. Olivia looked at him with disbelief. Vincent's face remained cold. Men who love women do not make them afraid to sleep at night, he said quietly. Nathan's eyes darted around the hallway, searching for another escape route. Then suddenly, alarms began screaming somewhere outside the mansion. One of Vincent's men immediately answered a radio call and looked toward him urgently. Police incoming, the man warned. Multiple units. Nathan instantly looked relieved. You hear that? He said quickly. This is over. But Vincent did not react at all. That frightened Nathan more than the police sirens growing louder outside. Vincent slowly removed his gloves while speaking calmly to one of his men in Italian. The man nodded and disappeared downstairs immediately. Nathan frowned in confusion. What are you doing? He demanded. Vincent folded the gloves carefully before slipping them into his coat pocket. Your security chief contacted the police 12 minutes ago, he explained calmly. Those officers work for people loyal to me. Nathan's relief vanished immediately. No, he whispered. Vincent stepped closer again. The real police won't arrive for another 20 minutes. Olivia suddenly realized Nathan understood exactly what that meant. Panic exploded across his face. Wait, he said quickly, while raising both hands again. You can't kill me here. Vincent stared at him coldly. Why not? Nathan swallowed hard. Because if I disappear, people will ask questions. Vincent tilted his head slightly. Nathan, he said softly, people disappear every day. Olivia felt sick as the tension inside the hallway became unbearable. She knew her brother. Vincent was not bluffing. If he decided Nathan would die tonight, nothing would stop it. Nathan backed against the railing again, while trying to think desperately. Olivia, he pleaded suddenly. Please. She looked at him silently. Tell him not to do this. Tears filled Nathan's eyes now. Real tears. The same man who once laughed while she cried was now begging for his own life. Olivia remembered every bruise she hid with makeup. Every night she locked herself in the bathroom, shaking after another violent argument. Every apology, every lie. Every moment she feared bringing a child into that house. But despite everything, part of her still could not handle watching someone die in front of her. Vincent, she whispered weakly. Her brother looked toward her immediately. Olivia swallowed hard. Please, don't kill him tonight. The entire hallway went quiet after those words. Nathan looked stunned. Vincent studied his sister carefully for several long seconds. Finally, he asked one question. Why? Olivia's eyes filled with tears again. Because if our baby grows up hearing his father was murdered by his uncle, then this never ends, she whispered. Nathan stared at her in disbelief. Vincent remained silent. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. Not softness, not forgiveness, just thought. He turned toward Nathan again. You are alive right now, because my sister still has a heart, he said quietly. Nathan exhaled shakily. But Vincent was not finished. If you ever go near her again, he continued, I will bury every person who protects you beside you. Nathan nodded rapidly. Vincent stepped even closer until they stood face to face. And if you speak her name publicly after tonight, he added softly, they will never find enough of you left to identify. Nathan could barely breathe. Outside the mansion, distant sirens grew louder while armed men continued securing the property. Vincent turned toward Olivia and removed his coat carefully before placing it around her shoulders. She immediately broke down, crying the moment she felt his arms around her. For several seconds, the feared Mafia king simply held his younger sister quietly while she trembled against him. Then Vincent looked toward one of his men and gave a short nod. Nathan frowned in confusion until two men suddenly grabbed him violently from behind. Wait! Nathan shouted in panic. Vincent looked back at him coldly. You're still going to disappear tonight, he replied calmly. I just decided you get to come back later. Nathan's terrified screams echoed through the mansion as the men dragged him downstairs. Olivia looked up at her brother fearfully. What are you going to do to him? Vincent stared toward the staircase without emotion. Something worse than death, he answered softly. I'm going to take away everything he loves slowly enough for him to feel it. Olivia sat silently in the back seat of Vincent's armored car while the city lights blurred past the windows. Her entire body still shook from everything that happened inside the mansion. But the deeper fear now came from realizing there was no going back anymore. Nathan had spent years controlling every part of her life, and somehow that control became so normal that freedom itself now felt unfamiliar. Vincent sat beside her, saying almost nothing, while several vehicles surrounded them from front and back. Men spoke quietly through radios. Calls came in constantly. Orders were given in calm, coded phrases she barely understood. Olivia leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes for 1 second. But every time she blinked, she saw Nathan's face again. The screaming, the rage, the fear after Vincent arrived. She suddenly remembered something else that terrified her even more. Nathan was connected to powerful people, politicians, investors, men with influence inside law enforcement and media. men who would notice very quickly when he disappeared. Olivia slowly opened her eyes again and looked toward Vincent. "He won't stay quiet," she whispered. Vincent kept staring forward. "I know," he replied calmly. The convoy eventually entered a private underground garage beneath one of Vincent's hotels downtown. Olivia had no idea the building even belonged to him. Armed guards waited beside the elevators, while doctors stood nearby, carrying medical equipment. The moment the car stopped, Vincent stepped out first, before helping Olivia carefully onto her feet. She winced immediately from pain in her ribs, and Vincent's jaw tightened the second he noticed. One of the doctors approached carefully and tried examining her injuries, but Olivia instinctively pulled away at first. Years of fear and manipulation had made her uncomfortable around almost everyone. Vincent noticed immediately. "Nobody touches you unless you allow it," he said quietly. The simple sentence nearly made Olivia cry again, because she realized Nathan had not spoken to her with that kind of respect in years. After a few seconds, she finally allowed the medical team to guide her toward the elevator. Vincent stayed beside her the entire time, without letting anyone rush her. Inside the private penthouse upstairs, Olivia stopped in shock after seeing how heavily secured the place was. Guards stood near every entrance. Bulletproof windows overlooked the skyline. Security screens covered one entire wall, showing different camera feeds across the city. Yet, despite all of that, the penthouse itself felt strangely calm. Warm lighting, quiet music somewhere in the background, fresh coffee sitting untouched near a fireplace. It did not feel like the home of a feared criminal. It felt organized, controlled. Olivia lowered herself carefully onto a couch, while doctors began treating the bruises along her face and ribs. Vincent stood near the windows, speaking softly into a phone, while keeping his eyes on the city below. She watched him silently for several moments. He looked older than she remembered. Harder, too. The years had carved something cold into him permanently. But when he glanced back toward her for a brief second, she still saw traces of the older brother who once carried her on his shoulders through crowded street festivals when they were children. One of the doctors quietly informed Vincent that Olivia and the baby appeared stable for now, though stress and physical trauma remained serious concerns. Vincent nodded once, before dismissing everyone except 2 guards outside the penthouse doors. Once they were alone, silence settled heavily between the brother and sister for the first time since the rescue. Olivia looked down at the blanket covering her legs while trying to find the right words. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered finally. Vincent stared at her for a moment. "You called me." Olivia swallowed hard. "I disappeared from your life for 7 years." Vincent walked slowly toward the fireplace before answering. "You're still my sister." Olivia lowered her eyes immediately. Guilt pressed heavily against her chest now. "I said terrible things to you before I left," she admitted softly. Vincent poured himself a drink but never touched it. "You were angry," he replied. Olivia shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "I was ashamed." Vincent looked toward her carefully after hearing that. Olivia struggled to continue speaking because part of her had buried these emotions for years. "I hated growing up around violence," she said quietly. "Everywhere we went, people feared our family. Kids at school whispered about us. Teachers looked nervous around Dad. And when you started taking over the organization after he died, She paused briefly. You became someone I didn't recognize anymore. Vincent remained silent. Olivia looked toward him, with tears filling her eyes again. I thought leaving meant I could finally become normal. Vincent finally spoke in a calm voice. And did it? Olivia looked away immediately, because she already knew the answer. For several seconds, neither of them spoke again. Then Vincent quietly asked something she never expected him to say. Did he hurt you before the wedding? Olivia looked up slowly. Vincent's expression remained unreadable. Or did it begin after? Olivia wrapped her arms around herself tightly before answering. The signs were always there, she admitted softly. I just ignored them because I wanted the life he promised me. She explained how Nathan slowly isolated her from everyone she trusted, how he manipulated arguments until she questioned her own memory, how every apology came with gifts, affection, and promises that things would improve. Vincent listened without interrupting once. The more Olivia spoke, the colder his eyes became. She eventually admitted something else that made Vincent's face harden completely. Nathan began monitoring her pregnancy appointments secretly. He insisted on choosing doctors personally. He became furious whenever she mentioned wanting the baby raised somewhere away from politics and public life. He said children are easier to control when they grow up dependent. Olivia whispered. Vincent slowly looked away toward the windows again after hearing that. Because men like Nathan did not view family as love. They viewed family as ownership. A sudden knock interrupted the conversation. One of Vincent's men entered quickly and handed him a tablet containing several news reports already spreading online. Nathan Calloway had officially vanished. News channels were covering his disappearance non-stop because several high-profile guests attended his fundraiser only hours earlier. Politicians demanded answers. Security footage from surrounding streets had mysteriously disappeared. Witnesses gave conflicting stories. Some claimed armed men stormed the estate. Others denied hearing anything unusual. Olivia felt panic immediately after seeing Nathan's face across the screen. They'll come after you, she whispered toward Vincent. But Vincent seemed far more interested in another report appearing underneath the headlines. His expression darkened slightly while reading it. Olivia noticed immediately. What is it? She asked nervously. Vincent handed her the tablet silently. Olivia read the article and felt her stomach tighten instantly. The story claimed federal investigators were quietly reopening old organized crime cases connected to the Morello family after receiving new anonymous evidence earlier that week. Olivia looked up slowly. Nathan, she whispered. Vincent nodded once. He started feeding information to federal agents months ago. Olivia's eyes widened. About you? Vincent remained calm. About everyone. Suddenly, Olivia understood the full danger of what was happening. Nathan had not only targeted Vincent privately, he had been positioning himself publicly as well, building political influence, secretly cooperating with authorities, gathering evidence against multiple criminal organizations while hiding his own crimes carefully enough to avoid suspicion. He was playing both sides. That's why he married me, Olivia realized quietly. At first it was about revenge against your family, but after he got close enough, I became useful. Vincent did not deny it. Olivia suddenly felt sick remembering all the private conversations Nathan encouraged over the years. Every family detail he asked about, casually. every question about Vincent's operations disguised as concern. Nathan had been studying the Morello empire through her from the beginning. Before either of them could continue, another call came through Vincent's secure phone line. He answered immediately, while walking toward the windows again. Olivia watched his expression carefully as someone spoke urgently on the other end. Then Vincent's face slowly hardened. "When?" he asked quietly. A pause followed. "How many?" Another silence. Finally, Vincent ended the call without another word. Olivia immediately knew something terrible had happened. "What is it?" she asked fearfully. Vincent looked toward her slowly. "One of our safe houses in Brooklyn was attacked 30 minutes ago." Olivia felt her chest tighten. "Nathan?" Vincent shook his head once. "No." His voice became colder now. Someone else moved first. Olivia stared at him in confusion. Vincent walked toward the security screens and activated one of the feeds showing emergency vehicles surrounding a burning building. Smoke poured heavily into the night sky, while police blocked surrounding streets. "3 of my men are dead," Vincent said calmly. "And whoever ordered the attack knew exactly where to hit." Olivia suddenly remembered Nathan mentioning another name months earlier during a private phone conversation she accidentally overheard. At the time, it meant nothing to her. But now the memory returned sharply. "Vincent," she whispered carefully, "have you ever heard of someone called Elias Kane?" The entire room seemed to change after she spoke that name. Vincent turned toward her very slowly. One of the guards near the door looked visibly tense immediately. Olivia realized instantly that Elias Kane was not just another enemy. Vincent stepped closer. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked calmly, though something dangerous now hid beneath his voice. Olivia explained the overheard conversation between Nathan and another man several weeks earlier. She remembered hearing them discuss shipments, federal investigations, and somebody named Kane, who apparently controlled powerful connections across both criminal organizations and political networks. Nathan sounded nervous during that conversation, which shocked Olivia because Nathan rarely feared anyone. Vincent listened carefully before speaking again. "Elias Kane disappeared 8 years ago," he said quietly. "Most people believe he's dead." Olivia frowned slightly. "But you don't?" Vincent looked toward the burning Safehouse footage again. "Dead men don't launch coordinated attacks across my territory." Silence filled the penthouse heavily after that statement. Then Vincent said something that made Olivia realize the nightmare surrounding her life had only just begun. "If Elias Kane is involved," he said softly, "then tonight was never only about rescuing you." Olivia barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nathan's face pressed against the bathroom door, or heard Vincent's cold voice echoing through the mansion hallway. The penthouse remained quiet, except for distant footsteps from guards changing positions outside. Sometime around 4 in the morning, Olivia walked slowly into the kitchen, hoping tea might calm her nerves. But she froze after noticing Vincent standing alone near the windows overlooking the city. He had not changed clothes since the rescue. One hand rested inside his pocket, while the other held a glass untouched for so long that the ice had already melted completely. From a distance, he looked calm, but Olivia knew him well enough to recognize the tension hidden beneath that silence. Vincent only became this quiet when he was thinking about war. She considered walking back to her room before he noticed her, but without turning around, he spoke first. "You should be resting." Olivia sighed softly and leaned against the counter. "I could say the same thing to you." For a few seconds, neither of them spoke again. The city lights reflected across the windows, while helicopters moved somewhere far in the distance. Olivia finally broke the silence. "Who exactly is Elias Kane?" Vincent remained still before answering carefully. Years ago, Kane controlled one of the largest underground financial networks in North America. Weapons, political blackmail, private intelligence, trafficking routes. If money moved illegally between powerful people, there was a good chance Kane touched it somehow. Olivia frowned slightly. Then why did everyone think he was dead? Vincent finally turned toward her. "Because I made sure the world believed it." Olivia felt cold immediately after hearing that answer. Vincent walked toward the kitchen slowly before continuing. 8 years ago, Kane tried taking control of several territories connected to our organization. He bribed judges, bought police commanders, and started eliminating anyone who refused to work with him. Eventually, he targeted our family directly. Olivia's heartbeat slowed uneasily. "Is he connected to what happened to Dad?" Vincent's eyes darkened slightly. "I've suspected it for years." Olivia sat quietly while Vincent explained how Elias Kane built power differently from traditional crime bosses. Kane avoided public attention completely. He rarely appeared in photographs. He used corporations, politicians, and respected businessmen as shields while remaining invisible himself. Even federal agencies struggled proving he existed, because every witness either disappeared or changed their story. Kane never cared about loyalty, Vincent said calmly. Only leverage. According to Vincent, Kane believed fear alone was unreliable because eventually people become desperate enough to fight back. So instead, Kane preferred owning secrets, affairs, financial crimes, hidden addictions, family scandals. He collected damaging information on powerful people and controlled them quietly for years. That's why men like Nathan admired him, Vincent continued. Nathan thought power meant manipulating people without them realizing it. Olivia lowered her eyes slowly. And now Nathan's working with him? Vincent looked toward the windows again. If Kane truly returned, Nathan probably believed helping him would protect himself. After a pause, Vincent added quietly, "He was wrong." A sharp knock interrupted the conversation. One of Vincent's trusted men entered quickly, carrying several folders and a tablet. "We found Calloway," he reported. Olivia immediately stiffened. Vincent motioned for him to continue. "He's being moved between properties owned through shell companies outside Philadelphia. Kane's people grabbed him before our transport reached the second location." Olivia stared in shock. "Wait, Nathan was taken?" The man nodded once. "2 of our men were killed during the ambush." Vincent's expression never changed, but Olivia saw his jaw tighten slightly. "Kane moved fast," Vincent said quietly. The man placed photographs across the kitchen counter, showing damaged vehicles, blood-stained pavement, and bodies covered beneath sheets. Olivia quickly looked away. Vincent studied the images silently for several seconds before asking, "Any message?" The man hesitated briefly. "Only one?" He handed Vincent a smaller photograph separately. Vincent glanced at it once, before sliding it face down against the counter. But Olivia had already caught a quick glimpse, a symbol drawn in blood. a black crown. "That symbol," Olivia whispered nervously. "I saw it before." Vincent looked toward her immediately. Olivia swallowed hard. Nathan had documents hidden inside his office with that same crown marked on them. Vincent exchanged a look with his man before asking carefully, "What kind of documents?" Olivia tried remembering clearly. "Shipping records, bank transfers, political donations." Then her face slowly lost color. "And names?" Vincent stepped closer instantly. "What names?" Olivia looked directly at him now. "Judges, senators, police officials." The room fell silent again. Vincent's man spoke first. "Kane's rebuilding his network." Vincent remained focused on Olivia. "Did Nathan keep copies anywhere else?" Olivia hesitated briefly before nodding slowly. "There's a storage unit in Manhattan Nathan visited several times without security. He thought I didn't notice." Vincent immediately grabbed his coat. Olivia's eyes widened. "You're going now." Vincent looked toward one of the guards near the door. "Prepare the cars." The guard moved instantly. Olivia stepped forward despite the pain in her ribs. "Vincent, if Kane already took Nathan, then he probably knows about the storage unit too." Vincent paused briefly before answering. "Exactly." Less than 40 minutes later, the convoy moved through lower Manhattan, while dawn slowly approached over the city skyline. Olivia remained inside the vehicle beside Vincent, despite his objections about bringing her along. She refused to stay behind. If Nathan truly kept evidence connected to Kane, she needed to know how deep everything went. The storage facility sat near an abandoned industrial district, surrounded by old warehouses and shipping yards. From the outside, it looked ordinary enough, but Vincent's men immediately noticed something wrong. One of the entrance gates had already been forced open recently. Vincent quietly signaled for everyone to spread out before helping Olivia carefully from the vehicle. The cold morning air hit her face as armed men moved silently around the property, checking entrances. "Stay beside me," Vincent said calmly. Olivia nodded while trying to ignore the growing fear twisting inside her stomach. The deeper they walked into the storage complex, the more uneasy Vincent's men became. Nobody spoke loudly anymore. Even the air felt wrong somehow. They eventually reached Unit 247 near the far end of the building. The metal door stood partially open already. Vincent instantly motioned for everyone to stop moving. One of his men carefully approached first, with a weapon raised, while another checked nearby corners. Olivia held her breath completely. After several tense seconds, the man near the entrance looked back toward Vincent. "Empty," he said quietly. Vincent stepped inside first, while Olivia followed carefully behind him. The storage unit looked recently searched. Filing boxes lay ripped apart across the floor. Several hard drives had been smashed deliberately. Papers covered nearly every surface. Someone had clearly arrived before them and removed whatever mattered most. Olivia slowly looked around the room until something caught her attention near the back wall. "Vincent," she whispered. He turned immediately. Olivia pointed toward a small projector screen hanging partially crooked behind stacked boxes. Vincent walked over slowly before noticing a digital projector still running quietly nearby. One of his men pressed a button accidentally while clearing space, and suddenly a video flickered onto the screen. Nathan appeared immediately on the projection, looking exhausted and terrified. Olivia gasped softly. The recording looked recent. Nathan sat tied to a chair beneath dim lighting, while blood stained his shirt collar. "If you're watching this," Nathan said shakily into the camera. "Then Kane reached me before Vincent did." Olivia felt her pulse racing while Vincent watched silently beside her. Nathan continued breathing unevenly before speaking again. "Olivia, I know you probably hate me now, and maybe you should. But there are things you still don't understand." Vincent's expression remained cold. Nathan lowered his eyes briefly before continuing. "Your father wasn't the real target all those years ago. Vincent was." Olivia looked toward her brother instantly. Nathan continued, speaking through the recording. "Kane believed Vincent would eventually become too powerful to control, so he manipulated the families around him into tearing each other apart before Vincent could fully take over." Olivia's chest tightened. Nathan swallowed painfully before adding, "Everything happening now started long before you met me." The video suddenly cut briefly with static before returning again. Nathan looked worse now, as if time had passed between recordings. "There's a ledger," he said weakly. "Kane keeps records on everyone he owns. Politicians, judges, law enforcement, crime families. If Vincent gets that ledger, Kane loses control." Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly for the first time. Nathan looked directly into the camera desperately. "The ledger is hidden somewhere called Black Harbor." Olivia frowned in confusion, but Vincent immediately recognized the name. She saw it in his face. Nathan coughed painfully before continuing. "Kane thinks Vincent will destroy himself trying to find it." Suddenly, distant voices echoed somewhere behind Nathan in the recording. Fear flooded his expression immediately. "They're coming back," he whispered quickly. Then he looked directly at the camera one final time. "Olivia, he never stopped loving you." The recording abruptly ended. Silence filled the storage unit afterward. Olivia stared at the blank screen while trying to process everything she just heard. Nathan sounded terrified in a way she had never seen before. Not manipulative, not angry, truly terrified. Vincent turned away from the projector slowly while one of his men shut it off completely. "What is Black Harbor?" Olivia asked quietly. Vincent remained silent for several seconds before answering. "An abandoned shipping terminal outside Baltimore." Olivia frowned. "And the ledger?" Vincent's voice became colder now. "If Kane really documented every politician, judge, federal agent, and criminal leader connected to his network, then that ledger could destroy half the powerful men on the East Coast." Olivia suddenly understood why people were already dying over it. Before she could speak again, one of Vincent's guards rushed inside urgently. "Boss," he said quickly, "we intercepted police communications." Vincent looked toward him immediately. "Federal agents are moving toward this location right now." Olivia's stomach dropped. "How did they find us?" The guard hesitated briefly. "Because someone tipped them off 5 minutes after we arrived." Silence fell heavily again. Then Vincent slowly looked toward the smashed hard drives scattered across the floor. "Kane wants us moving," he said quietly. "He's leading us exactly where he wants." Vincent ordered everyone out of the storage facility within seconds. The calmness in his voice made the situation feel even more dangerous, because Olivia noticed his men moved faster whenever he sounded quiet. Nobody questioned him. Nobody hesitated. They cleared the building with military precision, while distant sirens slowly echoed somewhere beyond the industrial district. Olivia followed closely beside Vincent as they crossed the parking area toward the waiting vehicles. But before reaching the convoy, Vincent suddenly stopped walking. His eyes shifted toward the rooftop of a nearby warehouse. Olivia followed his gaze but saw nothing at first. Then a faint red light appeared briefly in the darkness. A sniper laser. "Down," Vincent snapped instantly. He grabbed Olivia hard and pulled her behind a concrete barrier just as a gunshot exploded across the yard. One of Vincent's men collapsed near the vehicles before anyone even understood what happened. Chaos erupted immediately. Guards drew weapons while bullets shattered windows across the storage complex. Olivia covered her ears as screaming and gunfire echoed around them. Vincent stayed low beside her, while issuing orders calmly through an earpiece. "South roof," he said coldly. "2 shooters, minimum." Another shot cracked through the air and shattered the windshield of the nearest vehicle. Vincent's men returned fire instantly toward the rooftops, while dragging the injured guard behind cover. Olivia's breathing became frantic as she pressed herself against the concrete barrier. "They found us," she whispered shakily. Vincent checked his weapon quickly before answering. "No, they expected us." The difference between those two statements terrified her even more. Across the yard, armed men moved between buildings while muzzle flashes lit the darkness repeatedly. Whoever attacked them came prepared. These were not random gunmen or nervous street criminals. Their movements looked coordinated, trained. Olivia suddenly realized Kane's reach was far larger than she imagined. Vincent looked toward one of his men crouched nearby. "Get her out through the east exit." Olivia grabbed Vincent's arm immediately. "What about you?" Vincent glanced toward the rooftops again, as another bullet struck the barrier above them. "I'll handle this." Olivia shook her head quickly. "I'm not leaving you." Vincent finally looked directly at her. "Olivia, listen carefully to me. Kane wants leverage. Right now, you and that baby are the most valuable leverage he can find." Before she could respond, another explosion rocked the far side of the property. Flames burst from one of the parked vehicles, while smoke spread rapidly through the yard. Vincent cursed quietly under his breath and immediately pulled Olivia lower again. The attack was escalating too fast. Somewhere nearby, tires screeched loudly, followed by more gunfire from the warehouse entrances. Vincent's men shouted warnings back and forth while trying to contain shooters advancing from multiple directions. "Boss, they're pushing from the west side too," someone yelled through the radio. Vincent's expression hardened immediately. "They're hurting us," he said quietly. Olivia looked at him fearfully. "Into what?" But Vincent never answered, because a black van suddenly crashed through one of the security gates at full speed. Men wearing tactical masks poured out firing automatic weapons toward Vincent's convoy. Bullets ripped through metal and concrete everywhere. Olivia flinched violently as glass exploded across the ground beside her. Vincent finally grabbed her hand tightly. "Move," he ordered. They sprinted through a side passage between 2 warehouse buildings, while several guards covered them from behind. Olivia struggled to keep pace because of her injuries and pregnancy, but fear kept her moving. More gunshots echoed behind them, while Vincent guided her toward a narrow service alley leading deeper into the industrial district. The city around them still looked half asleep, unaware that a private war was unfolding only blocks away. Vincent suddenly pushed Olivia against the wall as another burst of bullets tore across the alley entrance. One of the guards behind them fired back before collapsing heavily onto the pavement. Olivia gasped in horror. Vincent grabbed the fallen guard's rifle immediately without stopping. His face showed no panic now, only focus. Cold focus. "Keep moving," he told Olivia. She could barely breathe properly anymore. Every instinct told her the attack was getting worse by the second. Whoever Kane sent was not trying to scare them away. They were trying to finish this before federal agents arrived. After several exhausting minutes, they finally reached another secured vehicle hidden behind an abandoned loading dock. Vincent shoved Olivia inside, while 2 remaining guards climbed into the front seats quickly. The engine roared to life immediately. Gunshots continued somewhere behind them as the vehicle sped through narrow side streets away from the warehouses. Olivia turned back once through the rear window and saw smoke rising into the early morning sky. "How many people does Kane have?" she whispered shakily. Vincent wiped blood from one side of his face where shattered glass had cut him earlier. Enough. That single word carried more weight than any detailed explanation could have. Olivia stared down at her trembling hands while trying to steady her breathing. Everything happening now felt larger than revenge between crime families. Kane operated like someone preparing for something much bigger. Coordinated attacks, federal leaks, political influence, surveillance. It felt organized on another level entirely. Vincent noticed the fear spreading across her face and spoke more softly this time. "You're safe with me." Olivia looked toward him quietly. "That's what scares me," she admitted. The vehicle eventually entered an underground tunnel system beneath another property connected to Vincent's network. This location looked far more hidden than the penthouse. Armed guards scanned every entrance, while reinforced steel doors sealed behind them once the convoy entered. Olivia stepped out carefully and immediately noticed tension everywhere. Men moved quickly through hallways, carrying weapons, laptops, and stacks of documents. Large digital maps covered several walls, showing shipping routes, police movement, and marked locations across multiple cities. Vincent walked through the command center, while people updated him rapidly about the attack, federal investigations, and sightings connected to Kane's network. Olivia stayed close behind him, feeling completely overwhelmed. One thing became painfully clear now. Vincent was not just a feared criminal. He controlled an entire private intelligence operation sophisticated enough to rival government agencies. Finally, Vincent led her into a quieter office away from the chaos outside. The moment the door closed behind them, Olivia saw exhaustion briefly appear in his face for the first time that night. "You need to tell me everything Nathan ever said about Black Harbor," Vincent said immediately. Olivia tried remembering carefully while sitting down slowly. "I only heard the name twice," she admitted. "Once during a phone call and once after he came home late one night." Vincent leaned against the desk, silently listening. "He sounded nervous both times," Olivia continued. "Nathan kept saying Kane was becoming reckless because of the ledger." Vincent frowned slightly. "Did he mention where inside Black Harbor?" Olivia shook her head at first. Then suddenly she paused. "Wait." Vincent looked toward her immediately. Olivia concentrated harder. "Nathan once said something about Dock 9. Vincent's expression changed instantly. He turned toward one of the digital maps nearby and zoomed into an old shipping terminal area along Baltimore Harbor. Several abandoned docks appeared across the screen. Then Vincent stopped at one location, specifically labeled Dock 9. "What is it?" Olivia asked quietly. Vincent stared at the map for several seconds before answering. Dock 9 belonged to Elias Kane 20 years ago. Before Olivia could ask another question, one of Vincent's senior men entered the office, quickly, looking disturbed. "Boss, we have another problem." Vincent turned immediately. "What now?" The man hesitated briefly before speaking. "Nathan escaped." Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. "What?" The man nodded grimly. "During the ambush, our transport team lost him in the chaos." Vincent's expression became dangerously calm again. "You're telling me a man surrounded by armed guards disappeared during a coordinated attack?" The man lowered his eyes slightly. "We believe someone inside helped him." Silence filled the office instantly. Olivia felt cold all over again. Vincent slowly looked toward the security screens outside the office, showing dozens of men working throughout the command center. "A leak," he said quietly. Nobody answered, because everyone already knew it was true. Kane did not just have enemies surrounding Vincent from the outside anymore. Someone within Vincent's own network was feeding information directly to Kane. Olivia watched her brother carefully and realized this news disturbed him more than the attack itself. Vincent could fight armed enemies openly, but betrayal inside his own organization created a different kind of danger. "Who would do that?" Olivia asked softly. Vincent looked toward the command center outside the glass office walls. "Someone who's been close enough to study us for a long time." The senior guard spoke again. "There's more." Vincent's eyes shifted toward him. "Nathan contacted a news station less than 20 minutes ago." Olivia frowned in confusion. "Why would he do that?" The guard handed Vincent a tablet already playing a breaking news segment. Olivia's blood ran cold immediately after seeing Nathan appear live on television from an unknown location. His face looked bruised and exhausted, but he was alive and speaking directly to cameras. "My name is Nathaniel Graves," he said shakily into microphones. "And if anything happens to me, Vincent Moretti is responsible." Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief as reporters surrounded Nathan aggressively. "For years," Nathan continued dramatically, "I've secretly gathered evidence against organized crime operations connected to Vincent Moretti. Tonight, his men abducted me and murdered several innocent people." Vincent watched the broadcast without reacting outwardly, but Olivia saw something dangerous building quietly behind his eyes. Nathan continued speaking emotionally while reporters recorded every word. He claimed Vincent controlled politicians, police officers, and federal informants across several cities. He described Olivia as a terrified woman trapped between her violent brother and dangerous criminal organizations. Then Nathan looked directly toward the cameras and delivered the line Kane probably instructed him to say. "If Vincent truly wants the ledger," Nathan announced, "then he'll come to Black Harbor himself." The screen suddenly cut away as reporters shouted more questions. Silence filled the office afterward. Olivia looked toward Vincent fearfully. "It's a trap," she whispered immediately. Vincent kept staring at the blank screen for several long seconds. "Of course it is," he replied calmly. Olivia stood up quickly, despite the pain in her body. "Then don't go." Vincent finally looked toward her. If Kane controls that ledger, he controls judges, senators, federal agents, and half the criminal networks on the East Coast. Olivia shook her head desperately. That's exactly why he wants you there. Vincent's expression remained unreadable. And that's exactly why I have no choice. The room stayed silent after Vincent admitted he was going to Black Harbor, no matter how dangerous the situation became. Olivia stared at him in disbelief, while the command center outside continued moving frantically around them. Phones rang non-stop. Security feeds changed every few seconds. Armed men prepared vehicles and checked weapons while federal news coverage about Nathan spread rapidly across television networks. Everything was accelerating at once. Olivia slowly shook her head. You're walking directly into whatever Kane planned. Vincent buttoned his coat calmly. Kane already started this the moment he touched you. Olivia stepped closer despite her exhaustion. No, Vincent, listen to me. Nathan is desperate right now. He'll say anything to survive. Vincent finally looked directly at her. Nathan is not controlling this anymore. The cold certainty in his voice unsettled her immediately. Deep down, Olivia knew he was right. Nathan always craved power and attention. But the attack at the warehouse proved someone far more organized was moving behind him now. Kane was using Nathan the same way Nathan once used everyone else. Vincent walked toward a large digital map glowing across one side of the office wall. Dock 9 sat highlighted in red near the edge of Baltimore Harbor. Surveillance photos, satellite images, and old shipping records surrounded the location. Olivia studied the screen carefully. Black Harbor looked abandoned from above. Rusted cargo cranes, empty shipping lanes, broken warehouses left untouched for years. What happened there? She asked quietly. Vincent rested one hand against the table while staring at the map. 20 years ago, Black Harbor handled illegal shipments moving between Eastern Europe and the United States. Weapons mostly. Cash. Trafficking routes. Olivia swallowed uneasily. Vincent continued calmly. Kane used the harbor as one of his primary operation centers before federal raids shut most of it down. Olivia frowned slightly. Then why would he return there now? Vincent's eyes narrowed toward Dock 9. Because people fear abandoned places less. Nobody notices ghosts moving through ruins. The way he said it made Olivia feel a chill run through her chest. A sudden argument erupted outside the office. Raised voices, fast footsteps. Vincent turned immediately as two guards dragged a wounded man into the command center. Blood stained the front of the man's shirt, while another guard held a pistol pressed against the back of his head. Olivia stepped closer instinctively before realizing she recognized him. Marcus Reed, one of Vincent's longtime security coordinators. She remembered him from years ago, when Vincent still visited family gatherings occasionally. Marcus looked terrified now. Please, he kept saying. I didn't know they'd attack the convoy. Vincent walked slowly out of the office while everyone else in the room fell silent. Marcus immediately looked toward him desperately. Boss, listen to me. Vincent stopped only a few feet away. You leaked our route, he said calmly. Marcus shook his head frantically. I only told them where the transfer vehicle was headed. Kane promised nobody would get hurt. Several men nearby looked disgusted after hearing that. Vincent remained expressionless. 3 men are dead. Marcus's breathing became shaky. I had debts, he whispered. They threatened my family. Olivia watched the entire room carefully and realized nobody felt sympathy for Marcus anymore. In Vincent's world, betrayal outweighed excuses every single time. Marcus looked toward Olivia suddenly, as if hoping she might help him somehow. "Miss Olivia, please tell him I never wanted this." Olivia froze because she could see genuine fear in his eyes. But before she could respond, Vincent quietly asked another question. "How long have you worked for Kane?" Marcus lowered his head immediately. Silence answered the question more clearly than words could. Vincent nodded slowly, as though confirming something he already suspected. "Yes," he said quietly. Marcus whispered weakly. "Since before your father died." The command center went completely still after that sentence. Olivia felt the air leave her lungs. Vincent did not move for several seconds. "You fed Kane information about my family for years?" Marcus looked like he might collapse from fear. "I was young when it started," he admitted shakily. "Kane owned everybody back then. Politicians, police, ports. If you refused him, people disappeared." Olivia looked toward Vincent carefully, because she knew hearing this would reopen old wounds connected to their father's murder. Vincent's expression remained frighteningly calm. "Did Kane order my father's death?" he asked softly. Marcus hesitated too long before answering. Vincent stepped closer instantly. "Answer me." Marcus shut his eyes tightly. "Yes." Silence swallowed the room again. Olivia felt tears forming immediately, after hearing the truth spoken out loud. For years, Vincent fought wars believing rival families killed their father. Entire bloodlines vanished because of that belief. And now, one terrified traitor admitted Kane manipulated everything from the beginning. Marcus kept speaking rapidly now, desperate to stay alive. "Your father discovered Kane was blackmailing politicians through shipping operations at Black Harbor. He threatened to expose everything." Kane panicked. Vincent's jaw tightened slightly. Marcus swallowed hard before continuing. "Kane used Uncle Mateo to arrange the hit." Olivia's eyes widened completely. "Uncle Mateo?" Marcus nodded weakly. "Your uncle thought he was protecting the family business. He never realized Kane planned taking control afterward." For the first time since Olivia reunited with Vincent, she saw genuine emotion break through his cold composure. Rage. Quiet, terrifying rage. Vincent looked away briefly while processing everything. Marcus tried speaking again. "Boss, I can help you find Kane." Vincent slowly turned back toward him. "You already helped him enough." Marcus's face lost color instantly. "Please," Vincent interrupted calmly. "Where is Nathan?" Marcus swallowed nervously. "Black Harbor. Kane's keeping him there until tonight." Vincent studied him carefully. "And the ledger?" Marcus nodded quickly. "Dock 9. Underground vault beneath the old customs office." Several men around the room exchanged tense looks after hearing that. Marcus stepped forward slightly, despite the gun against him. "Boss, if you go there, Kane expects it. He's preparing for war." Vincent's voice became dangerously soft now. "Then I'll give him one." Marcus suddenly dropped to his knees. "Please don't kill me," he whispered. "I'll testify. I'll tell you everything." Olivia looked toward Vincent nervously, because she already recognized the silence settling across his face again. Finally, Vincent spoke without emotion. "Take him downstairs." Marcus immediately started begging louder as guards dragged him away. Olivia watched in horror while his voice echoed through the hallways before disappearing completely. Once the doors closed, The command center remained quiet for several moments. Nobody questioned Vincent's decision. Nobody even looked surprised. Olivia slowly approached her brother after most men returned to work. "What are you going to do to him?" she asked quietly. Vincent kept his eyes on the map of Black Harbor. "Marcus spent years feeding information to the man who destroyed our family." Olivia lowered her voice. "That's not an answer." Vincent finally looked toward her. "You don't want the real answer." The coldness in his eyes made her stop asking. Deep down, she realized something painful. Part of Vincent never escaped the violent world she tried leaving behind years ago. Maybe nobody born into that life truly could. Several hours later, preparations for Black Harbor were fully underway. Vehicles, weapons, encrypted radios, surveillance drones. Vincent's organization moved with terrifying efficiency once plans were finalized. Olivia sat quietly near the edge of the command center while doctors checked the bruising along her ribs again. She barely listened. Her mind stayed trapped on everything Marcus revealed about their father's death. Uncle Matteo, Kane, betrayal inside the family itself. The foundations of her entire childhood suddenly felt poisoned. Vincent approached her after finishing another strategy meeting with his men. "You're staying here tonight," he said firmly. Olivia looked up immediately. "No?" Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "Olivia?" She interrupted him instantly. "Nathan knows things about me. About us. If Kane's using him, then I need to hear what he says." Vincent crossed his arms. "Black Harbor isn't safe." Olivia laughed bitterly through exhaustion. "Nothing has been safe since the moment I called you." Vincent remained silent, because he knew she was right. After several seconds, he finally exhaled slowly. "You stay beside me at all times." Olivia nodded immediately, before he could change his mind. As evening approached, storms rolled across the coastline outside Baltimore. Black Harbor sat dark and abandoned beneath thick clouds, while waves crashed against rusted shipping docks. From a distance, the place looked completely dead. But hidden cameras already watched every entrance road leading toward Dock 9. Armed men moved between empty warehouses, carrying rifles and communication gear. Floodlights flickered weakly across broken concrete, stained by decades of salt water and oil. Inside one of the underground chambers beneath the harbor, Nathan sat handcuffed to a steel chair while blood dried across his split lip. He looked exhausted now, broken. Across from him, a tall man stood calmly beside an old wooden table covered with files and photographs. Nathan avoided looking directly at him. "You promised Vincent would die before I ever appeared publicly," Nathan muttered nervously. The man smiled faintly while adjusting black leather gloves. "And yet here you are, still alive." Nathan swallowed hard. "You used me." The man's smile widened slightly. "Nathan, everyone gets used eventually." The man finally stepped into better light, revealing sharp grey eyes and silver streaks along his dark hair. Elias Kane looked nothing like the monster whispered about in rumors. No scars, no loud threats, no dramatic anger. He resembled a wealthy executive more than a criminal mastermind. Calm, educated, controlled. And somehow, that made him far more frightening. Kane picked up a photograph from the table, showing Olivia beside Vincent years earlier, when they were still teenagers. "Family," Kane said softly. "The strongest weakness any powerful man can have." Nathan stared at the floor silently. Kane looked toward him again. You should never have touched Vincent's sister emotionally. Fear fades, but emotional wounds? He smiled slightly. Those last forever. Nathan finally looked up angrily. You're insane. Kane chuckled quietly. No, Nathan. I'm patient. Suddenly, one of Kane's men entered quickly. Sir, Morello's convoy just crossed the eastern bridge. Kane's expression remained calm as he slipped the photograph back onto the table. Then he spoke the words that would change everything before the night ended. Good, he said softly. Now the real story begins. The convoy approached Black Harbor just after midnight. Olivia sat beside Vincent in complete silence while lightning flashed faintly across the distant ocean. The closer they got to Dock 9, the more abandoned the city around them became. Empty streets, broken factories, rusted train tracks disappearing into darkness. Even the air smelled different near the harbor, thick with salt water, oil, and old smoke trapped inside forgotten buildings. Vincent's men moved ahead in separate vehicles, scanning rooftops and side entrances, while encrypted radio chatter filled the tense silence inside the armored car. Olivia stared through the window at the looming cargo cranes ahead and felt a terrible weight settling inside her chest. Everything about Black Harbor felt wrong, like the entire place existed only for violence. Vincent noticed her hands trembling slightly and quietly placed a handgun on the seat between them. Olivia looked down at it immediately. I don't know how to use that, she whispered. Vincent kept his eyes forward. Tonight might be the night you learn. The convoy finally stopped several blocks from Dock 9 after surveillance drones confirmed armed movement throughout the shipping terminal. Vincent stepped out first, while rainwater from earlier storms dripped steadily from broken warehouse roofs around them. Olivia followed carefully behind him, wearing a dark coat and protective vest. One of Vincent's men insisted she put on before leaving the command center. Nearby guards spread across the harbor, securing positions behind shipping containers and abandoned vehicles. Floodlights flickered weakly in the distance, casting long shadows across the docks. Vincent studied the area carefully before speaking into his radio. No aggressive movement, unless I order it. One of his men looked confused. Boss, Kane's expecting us. Vincent nodded once. Exactly. Olivia realized immediately what he meant. Kane wanted chaos, a massive firefight, bodies everywhere. But Vincent planned approaching this differently. Quietly, carefully. For the first time since arriving at Black Harbor, Olivia noticed something else too. There were almost no police anywhere nearby, despite Nathan publicly accusing Vincent hours earlier. That meant Kane controlled more powerful people than she imagined. Vincent led a smaller group toward Dock 9 through narrow service tunnels running beneath the harbor. The underground passage smelled damp and rotten from years of neglect. Water dripped steadily from rusted pipes overhead, while old emergency lights flickered weakly along concrete walls. Olivia stayed close behind Vincent, while two armed guards moved ahead, checking corners constantly. Nathan said the ledger is beneath the customs office. Vincent whispered quietly, while studying a digital layout on his phone. One of the guards nodded. Thermal scans show movement below ground. Olivia tried controlling her breathing as they descended deeper beneath the docks. Every sound echoed louder underground. Footsteps, water drops, distant machinery humming somewhere far ahead. Then, suddenly, Vincent stopped moving and raised one hand sharply. Everyone froze instantly. Olivia listened carefully and heard it too. Music. Soft, classical music drifting faintly through the tunnel ahead. Vincent's expression darkened immediately. "Kane," he said quietly, because only someone completely confident in their control would play music while preparing for war. They eventually reached a massive underground chamber hidden beneath Dock 9. Olivia stared in disbelief at what stood before them. The room looked less like an abandoned smuggling vault, and more like a private archive built for secrets powerful enough to destroy governments. Shelves filled with documents stretched across entire walls. Digital servers hummed quietly behind reinforced glass. Screens displayed financial records, surveillance footage, political files, and photographs connected to hundreds of influential people. Senators, judges, federal agents, CEOs, crime bosses. The ledger was real, and far larger than Olivia imagined. Vincent stepped forward slowly while studying the room carefully. "This is how Kane survived for so long," he murmured. "He never needed armies. He owned everyone already." Olivia suddenly understood why people kept dying to protect these records. Whoever controlled this information could blackmail half the country. Suddenly, a slow clap echoed through the chamber behind them. Olivia turned instantly. Elias Kane emerged calmly from a side corridor wearing a dark overcoat with several armed men standing behind him. Nathan stood nearby, handcuffed and bruised beneath guard watch. The moment Olivia saw him again, complicated emotions twisted through her chest. Fear, anger, pity. Nathan looked completely broken now, compared to the confident politician he once pretended to be. Kane smiled faintly while approaching Vincent. "I was beginning to wonder whether family loyalty still existed in your bloodline," he said smoothly. Vincent remained motionless. "You killed my father." Kane tilted his head slightly. "Your father made the mistake of believing loyalty mattered more than leverage." Vincent's eyes darkened. "You destroyed my family." Kane looked almost amused. "No, Vincent. Your family destroyed itself long before I arrived. I simply opened doors that already wanted opening." Olivia watched the exchange carefully and realized Kane spoke with terrifying honesty. He did not shout or threaten because he genuinely believed people betrayed themselves eventually, without needing force. Nathan suddenly stepped forward slightly, despite the guards holding him. "Vincent, listen to me," he said urgently. "He plans killing all of us after securing the ledger." Kane smiled without looking back at him. "Nathan still believes loyalty deserves rewards," he said calmly. Vincent ignored Nathan completely while keeping his attention on Kane. "You manipulated my uncle into murdering my father." Kane nodded casually. "Matteo feared losing influence once your father started changing operations. Fear makes intelligent men predictable." Olivia felt sick hearing someone discuss murder so calmly. Vincent slowly stepped closer now. "All these years," he said quietly, "you watched families kill each other while hiding behind politicians and blackmail." Kane's expression remained calm. "And yet you became exactly what I expected. Ruthless, isolated, feared." Kane glanced briefly toward Olivia. "Family was always your weakness, Vincent. The moment your sister called you, I knew you'd come personally." Olivia realized then that Kane never cared about Nathan alone. Everything leading to tonight had been designed specifically to pull Vincent into Black Harbor. One of Vincent's men suddenly raised his weapon slightly toward Kane. but Vincent stopped him instantly with a small hand gesture. Kane noticed the discipline immediately and smiled faintly again. "Still controlling your temper. Impressive." Vincent's voice became colder. "You talk too much for a man standing this close to death." Kane chuckled quietly. "And you still mistake violence for control?" Then Kane slowly walked toward the rows of files surrounding the chamber. "Do you know why governments truly fail, Vincent?" he asked calmly. "Not because of criminals, not because of corruption. They fail because every powerful man believes his secrets will stay buried forever." He picked up one file casually and tossed it onto the table near Vincent. Olivia glanced down and froze after recognizing a famous senator's photograph attached beside records of offshore accounts and hidden payments. Kane gestured around the room. "This ledger is the real throne. Money fades, territories change, fear weakens, but secrets?" He smiled coldly. "Secrets rule forever." Nathan suddenly spoke again, panic growing in his voice now. "You promised me protection." Kane finally looked toward him directly. "And you promised me competence." Nathan swallowed hard. "I gave you Olivia. I gave you access to Vincent." Olivia's face twisted with disgust after hearing those words. Nathan noticed immediately. "Olivia, listen to me. I did what I had to survive." She stared at him in disbelief. "You destroyed our lives because you were afraid." Nathan looked desperate now. "You don't understand how dangerous he is." But Olivia slowly shook her head. "No, Nathan. I finally understand exactly who you are." Vincent remained silent during the exchange, but Olivia noticed something dangerous changing in his expression the longer Nathan spoke. Kane noticed it too. "Interesting," Kane said softly. "Even now, she still influences your decisions emotionally." Vincent finally turned his eyes toward Kane fully again. "You keep misunderstanding something." Kane raised an eyebrow slightly. Vincent's voice dropped lower. "I'm not here for revenge anymore." The room became still after those words. Kane studied Vincent carefully for the first time, as though reassessing him. Vincent slowly looked around the underground archive surrounding them. "You built this empire on fear and secrets," he continued calmly. "But men like you always believe information makes you untouchable." Kane folded his hands behind his back. "Because it does." Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "No, it only makes everyone dependent on your survival." Before Kane could respond, Vincent suddenly pulled a small remote device from his coat pocket. Olivia frowned in confusion. Then one of Kane's men shouted something urgently while checking a nearby monitor. The screens across the chamber suddenly flickered violently. Files started disappearing. Server systems began shutting down one after another. Kane's calm expression finally cracked slightly. "What did you do?" Vincent looked directly at him. "While you prepared for my arrival, my people entered your offshore servers through the ledger's backup network." Kane moved toward the monitors immediately. "Impossible." Vincent's eyes stayed cold. "Every file connected to your network is being released publicly right now." Chaos erupted instantly throughout the underground chamber. Kane's men rushed toward computers while alarms blared across the facility. Financial records, political corruption files, blackmail evidence, hidden surveillance archives. Everything Kane spent decades collecting was now spreading across international media networks, federal agencies, and encrypted leak sites simultaneously. Olivia stared at Vincent in shock. "You planned this?" Vincent kept his eyes on Kane. I stopped trying to destroy men like him years ago. Kane grabbed one of the monitors violently while watching names and files upload rapidly online. For the first time, genuine anger appeared across his face. You fool, he snapped toward Vincent. You just destroyed governments. Vincent answered coldly. No, you did. Suddenly, Kane pulled a handgun from inside his coat and pointed it directly toward Olivia. The entire room froze instantly. Nathan shouted something in panic while Vincent's men raised weapons simultaneously. Kane backed toward Olivia slowly, with the gun pressed near her head now. Then let's see how much your sister still matters once the world burns because of you. Vincent's face became terrifyingly calm again, and Olivia suddenly realized the final moments of the night had begun. The underground chamber fell completely silent the moment Elias Kane pressed the gun against Olivia's head. Even the alarms screaming through the facility suddenly felt distant compared to the tension locking every person in place. Olivia could hear her own heartbeat pounding violently while Kane held her tightly against him. Vincent stood only several feet away, surrounded by armed men, yet nobody moved, because one wrong decision would get Olivia killed instantly. Kane's calm mask had finally disappeared now. Years of control were collapsing around him in real time as confidential files flooded across media outlets and government networks worldwide. Politicians were already being exposed. Judges, federal agents, CEOs, men who built careers pretending to fight corruption, were now being revealed as part of Kane's hidden system. And for the first time in decades, Kane looked cornered. Dangerous men became unpredictable when they lost control. Olivia felt the cold metal of the gun pressed harder against her temple as Kane slowly backed toward one of the emergency exits behind him. Tell your men to stand down, he ordered Vincent quietly. Vincent did not answer immediately. His expression looked colder than Olivia had ever seen before, but beneath that calm, she recognized something else too. Fear. Real fear. Not for himself, for her. Kane noticed it instantly and smiled faintly despite everything collapsing around him. There it is, Kane whispered near Olivia's ear. The weakness your father carried too. Vincent's eyes darkened immediately. You talk about my father like you understood him, Vincent said softly. Kane shrugged slightly while keeping the gun steady. Your father was intelligent, but he still believed family loyalty could survive inside this world. Olivia saw Vincent take one slow step forward. Every weapon in the room followed the movement nervously. Kane tightened his grip around Olivia immediately. Another step and she dies. Vincent stopped again without taking his eyes off Kane. The silence between them felt suffocating now. Years of violence, betrayal, and buried secrets had all led to this moment beneath Black Harbor. Nathan suddenly shouted from across the chamber, "Kane, listen to me." Everyone turned briefly toward him. Nathan looked desperate and exhausted while struggling against the guards holding him. You can still escape, he said quickly. Use me. Use the ledger backups. We can negotiate. Kane stared at Nathan for several seconds before laughing quietly. Not loudly, not wildly, just disappointment. Nathan, he said calmly, you still don't understand your role in this story. Nathan's face tightened with panic. Kane looked almost amused now. You were never my partner. You were bait. Olivia watched Nathan's entire expression collapse after hearing those words. For years, Nathan manipulated everyone around him, believing he was smarter than the people he used. But now he finally understood he had been manipulated too. Kane slowly looked back toward Vincent. "Your sister's husband wanted power," he said casually. "The problem with ambitious men is they confuse attention with importance." Nathan lowered his head completely, as though every lie he built his life around had finally shattered. Suddenly, one of the giant monitors along the chamber wall switched automatically to a live news broadcast. Reporters across multiple networks were already covering the leaked files. Federal buildings appeared surrounded by emergency vehicles. Several senators had apparently disappeared from public view within the last hour. Arrest warrants were being discussed openly on television. Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief, while Kane's entire empire burned publicly before his eyes. One reporter described the leak as the largest political corruption exposure in modern American history. Another announced that international agencies were beginning coordinated investigations connected to offshore accounts and organized crime operations. Kane watched the broadcasts silently for several moments, while his grip around Olivia slowly tightened. "Do you see what you've done?" he asked Vincent quietly. "Governments will collapse because of this." Vincent remained expressionless. "No. Masks will." Kane smiled bitterly. "You still believe truth changes people?" Vincent answered softly. "No, but fear does. And tonight powerful men are finally afraid." The alarms throughout the chamber suddenly changed tone. One of Kane's men checked a nearby radio before looking toward him urgently. "Federal tactical units just entered the harbor," the man warned. Another shouted that Coast Guard vessels were surrounding the docks above. Kane's escape routes were disappearing quickly now. Olivia felt his breathing change slightly behind her. Faster, less controlled. For the first time all night, Kane looked trapped. But trapped men with weapons remained dangerous. Vincent seemed to realize it too, because his voice became quieter when he spoke again. "It's over, Kane." Kane smiled faintly beside Olivia's head. "Men like me don't lose, Vincent. We simply disappear until people become desperate enough to need us again." Then his expression shifted suddenly toward something colder. "But before I disappear," he pressed the gun harder against Olivia. Vincent's men instantly raised their weapons higher. Nathan shouted again in panic. The entire chamber stood seconds away from exploding into violence. Then Olivia did something nobody expected. She drove her elbow backward directly into Kane's ribs with all the strength she had left. Kane cursed sharply in pain while the gun shifted away from her head for half a second. That half second changed everything. Vincent moved instantly. Gunfire exploded across the chamber as multiple men opened fire simultaneously. Olivia dropped toward the ground, while chaos erupted around her. Kane fired once wildly before Vincent tackled him violently against a steel support beam. Nearby guards exchanged gunfire with Kane's remaining men, while alarms screamed louder through the collapsing facility. Olivia crawled behind a metal crate covering her head, as bullets shattered glass and monitors around the chamber. Nathan screamed something unintelligible while trying to escape the crossfire. Through the chaos, Olivia caught brief glimpses of Vincent and Kane fighting brutally across the floor. No hesitation anymore. No speeches. Just years of hatred finally becoming violence. Kane fought viciously despite his age. He slammed Vincent against a table hard enough to break wood before grabbing another weapon from one of the fallen guards nearby. Vincent struck him across the face before the gun could fully rise. Blood splattered across the floor as both men crashed into rows of filing cabinets, sending decades of blackmail documents flying through the air like confetti. Around them, the chamber descended further into chaos as tactical units stormed the upper harbor levels. Sirens echoed through the tunnels above. Smoke spread from damaged electrical systems. Olivia looked around desperately for safety, until she suddenly heard Nathan calling her name weakly. She turned and saw him collapsed near one of the overturned desks with blood spreading across his side. Olivia froze briefly. Nathan looked terrified now. Human. Broken. Olivia, please. Part of her wanted to walk away forever. Another part remembered the man she once believed loved her, before fear and power poisoned everything between them. Olivia crawled carefully toward him, while gunfire continued across the chamber. Nathan grabbed her wrist weakly the moment she reached him. "I never meant for any of this," he whispered painfully. Olivia looked at him with tears filling her eyes. "You chose this," she answered softly. Nathan shook his head slowly. "At first I thought I could control Kane. I thought if I gave him information about Vincent, he'd help me build something bigger." He coughed painfully before continuing. "But once people like him own your secrets, they own you forever." Olivia could barely recognize the arrogant politician she married inside the terrified man bleeding beside her now. Nathan looked toward her stomach weakly. "I did love you," he whispered. Olivia shut her eyes briefly, because hearing those words only hurt more now. "Love doesn't leave bruises," she said quietly. Nathan started crying silently after hearing that. A deafening gunshot suddenly echoed louder than the others. Olivia looked up immediately. Vincent and Kane stood near the far side of the chamber, both covered in blood and exhaustion. Kane held a pistol weakly in one shaking hand, while Vincent pointed another directly at his chest. Every surviving guard froze around them. Kane laughed softly, despite blood running from his mouth now. "You think killing me fixes anything?" he asked Vincent. Vincent's breathing remained heavy but controlled. Kane smiled bitterly. "There will always be another man like me." Vincent stared at him coldly for several seconds. Then he answered with words Olivia would remember for the rest of her life. "Maybe," Vincent said quietly. "But tonight you learned something important." Kane tilted his head slightly. Vincent stepped closer. "Even monsters eventually run out of shadows." Then Vincent pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through Black Harbor like the end of a long nightmare. Kane collapsed backward against the floor beside thousands of scattered secrets he spent decades using to control other people. Silence slowly spread across the chamber afterward, except for distant sirens above. Vincent lowered the gun while breathing heavily. Around him, surviving men slowly dropped their weapons as federal tactical teams finally flooded into the underground vault from every entrance. Olivia stared at Kane's lifeless body while trying to process that the man responsible for destroying her family was finally gone. But the victory did not feel clean. Too many people were dead. Too many lives destroyed. Too much blood spilled across years of lies and manipulation. Nathan suddenly coughed violently beside her again. Olivia looked down quickly and realized the bleeding across his side had become much worse. Nathan's eyes looked weaker now. Fading. He grabbed Olivia's hand one last time. "Don't let your child grow up around this world," he whispered painfully. Then his grip slowly loosened. Olivia stared at him silently as the man she once loved took his final breath beside the ruins of Black Harbor. By sunrise, Black Harbor no longer belonged to criminals. Federal agents flooded the docks, while news helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting live coverage of the largest organized corruption scandal the country had ever seen. Politicians vanished overnight. Emergency resignations spread across major offices. Judges were escorted from courthouses in handcuffs. Private financial records connected to Elias Kane continued leaking across media platforms hour after hour, exposing years of hidden alliances between powerful officials and criminal networks operating quietly behind legitimate businesses. Reporters called it the collapse of a shadow empire. But for Olivia, it did not feel like victory. She stood silently near the edge of the harbor, wrapped in Vincent's coat, while ambulances and tactical teams moved around the destroyed shipping terminal behind her. Nathan's body had already been taken away. Kane was dead. The ledger was public. Yet none of it erased the exhaustion sitting heavily inside her chest. Some endings do not feel triumphant after surviving them. Some endings simply feel quiet. Vincent stood several feet away, speaking briefly with a federal commander, before handing over several encrypted drives recovered from Kane's archive. Olivia watched him carefully, while cold ocean wind moved through the harbor. For the first time in years, she noticed something different about her brother. He looked tired, not physically, deeply tired, like a man who spent most of his life fighting battles he never truly wanted. The federal commander eventually walked away, leaving Vincent alone beside the water for several seconds. Olivia slowly approached him, while placing one hand protectively over her stomach again. "Are they letting you go?" she asked quietly. Vincent looked out across the ocean before answering. Some of the men Kane controlled still owe favors. Olivia understood immediately. Even after everything, power still protected certain people. Vincent glanced toward her briefly. "You should leave the country for a while after this." Olivia frowned slightly. "And you?" Vincent's expression became unreadable again. "I have things to finish." Olivia shook her head softly. "It never ends with you, does it?" Vincent remained silent because there was no honest answer that would comfort her. Men like him did not simply disappear into peaceful lives after years inside organized crime. Too many enemies survived. Too many ghosts remained attached to their names. Olivia looked down briefly before speaking again. "Nathan told me something before he died." Vincent finally turned toward her fully. "What?" Olivia swallowed carefully. "He said people like Kane own you forever once they learn your secrets." Vincent stared at the harbor quietly for several moments. "Nathan was wrong about many things," he replied softly. Olivia waited. Vincent finally looked at her again. "Nobody owns you once you stop fearing the truth about yourself." The words stayed with Olivia longer than she expected. Because for years, she hid from the truth about her family, her marriage, and even herself. She spent so much time pretending darkness belonged only to other people that she ignored danger standing directly beside her until it almost destroyed her completely. Several days later, the world continued unraveling from Kane's leaked files. International investigations spread rapidly. organized crime leaders disappeared. Financial institutions froze hidden accounts connected to corruption networks. Every major news station covered updates non-stop, while politicians publicly denied connections already proven through documents and recordings. Yet, despite all the chaos, one question remained unanswered across every report. Where was Vincent Morello? Federal agencies searched aggressively, but Vincent vanished almost immediately after Black Harbor. Some claimed private jets carried him overseas before dawn. Others believed loyal officials helped him disappear through sealed government routes. Rumors spread constantly, but nobody could confirm anything. Olivia heard the stories while recovering quietly inside a private coastal property far from major cities. Vincent arranged full security around the estate before disappearing without goodbye 2 nights earlier. At first, she felt angry he left that way. Then she realized goodbye was probably too dangerous for men like him. Weeks passed slowly after Black Harbor. Olivia focused on healing physically and emotionally while preparing for the birth of her child. Therapy sessions helped her understand how deeply fear and manipulation affected her over the years with Nathan. Some mornings she still woke up shaking from nightmares. Other nights she found herself checking locked doors repeatedly before sleeping. Recovery did not happen instantly, simply because the danger ended. But little by little, peace started feeling possible again. One afternoon, while sitting near the ocean outside the estate, Olivia received a package with no return address. Inside sat an old photograph of herself and Vincent as children standing beside their mother during a summer festival years before everything fell apart. Folded beneath the photograph was a handwritten note containing only one sentence. "You were never weak for wanting a different life." Olivia immediately recognized Vincent's handwriting. She cried quietly for nearly an hour after reading those words, because deep down, part of her always feared her brother blamed her for leaving the family behind all those years ago. 3 months later, Olivia gave birth to a baby boy just before sunrise. The moment doctors placed him into her arms, something inside her changed permanently. For the first time in years, fear no longer felt stronger than hope. She looked down at her son's tiny face and realized she finally understood why Vincent fought so hard to protect her despite everything that happened between them. Family was complicated, messy, sometimes painful. But real love protected instead of controlled. Real love sacrificed instead of possessed. Nathan spent years claiming his obsession came from love, but true love would never leave someone afraid to breathe freely inside their own home. Olivia named her son Gabriel, not after anyone connected to crime or power, just a simple name carrying the possibility of a peaceful future, a future she intended protecting no matter what it cost. Late one evening, nearly a year after Black Harbor, Olivia sat outside her coastal home, watching Gabriel sleep through the baby monitor beside her, when headlights appeared near the front gate unexpectedly. Security moved quickly toward the arriving vehicle, before stopping suddenly. Olivia frowned in confusion, while rising slowly from her chair. A black car waited silently beyond the gates for several moments, before one man finally stepped out wearing a dark coat beneath the dim lights. Even from a distance, Olivia recognized him immediately. Vincent looked thinner than before, older somehow, but alive. Olivia walked toward the gate slowly, while guards stepped aside respectfully. For several seconds, neither sibling spoke, once they stood face to face again. Vincent's eyes shifted briefly toward the baby monitor resting in Olivia's hands. "You asleep?" he asked quietly. Olivia nodded softly. Vincent stared toward the ocean behind her before speaking again. "I can leave if this puts you in danger." Olivia felt tears threatening again instantly, because after everything, he still worried about protecting her first. Without another word, she stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Vincent froze slightly before slowly wrapping his arms around her in return. For the first time since they were children, Olivia no longer felt afraid of the darkness surrounding their family name. Because now she understood something important. People are not born monsters simply because violence exists around them. Some become cruel willingly. Others spend their entire lives carrying pain while trying to protect the few people they still love. Vincent was never perfect. He carried blood on his hands that could never fully disappear. But when Olivia made that phone call from the bathroom floor, believing her life might end that night, her brother crossed cities, enemies, bullets, and buried family secrets to save her without hesitation. And sometimes love looks less like perfection and more like showing up when someone cries for help. Vincent eventually met Gabriel that same night. Olivia watched quietly from the doorway, while her feared Mafia brother carefully held the sleeping baby with hands that once terrified grown men across entire cities. Vincent looked almost nervous holding him. Gabriel suddenly wrapped tiny fingers around Vincent's thumb while sleeping peacefully against his chest. Something softened briefly in Vincent's expression then. A rare, quiet moment untouched by violence or fear. Olivia smiled through tears because she realized the cycle that destroyed so much of their family did not have to continue forever. Some people inherit darkness. Others choose whether it ends with them. Before leaving again near sunrise, Vincent stood beside the front door while Olivia walked him outside. "You don't have to disappear every time," she whispered softly. Vincent gave a faint, tired smile. "Maybe one day." Then he looked toward Gabriel, sleeping inside the house, before adding quietly, "Make sure he grows up, knowing kindness before power." Olivia nodded slowly. Vincent stepped toward the waiting car before stopping one final time. "And Olivia?" She looked at him. Vincent's voice softened slightly. "Next time you need help, call sooner." As the car disappeared down the coastal road, Olivia stood quietly beneath the morning sky, holding her son close against her chest. The world would continue talking about Elias Kane, Black Harbor, corruption scandals, and the mysterious disappearance of Vincent Morello for years afterward. Documentaries would be made. Rumors would spread. People would argue endlessly about whether Vincent was a criminal, a protector, or something in between. But Olivia knew the truth was far more human than the stories people preferred telling. Because sometimes the most dangerous people in the world are also the ones capable of loving hardest when it truly matters. And sometimes one desperate phone call can change the fate of entire lives forever. Before we end this story, let us know in the comments what you would have done if you were Olivia that night. Would you have made the call to your brother after 7 years of silence? And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next true storytelling experience.